This is Pukeology Podcast, where science meets your hilarious puke stories and the tips and tricks to stop that chuckle that you need.
You never know what's going to spew out of her mouth. Here's
my mama,
Dr. Pukeology.
Have you ever felt your belly popping and it's not the baby kicking? Well, your baby has hiccups. Yes, even babies in utero can get hiccups. But why? Well, I'm the doctor that's going to tell you and give you some really cool, fun facts that you probably didn't know about what your baby's doing in there. And also how to stop hiccups in adults. Coming up on episode 61, why do babies get hiccups in your belly? Do you want no more morning sickness, pregnancy nausea, or how about no more headaches or migraines? Visit our sponsor, nomonausea.com, the only natural way to instantly stop your worst nausea, vomiting, or headaches now. And get 25% off with the code PUKE25. That's PUKE25. Or just place No More Nausea Ban on your baby registry for your delivery bag at Bye Bye Baby, or get it shipped for free in 2 days as an Amazon Prime vendor. And your little ones are always taken care of with the first kids version, No More Nausea Kids and No More Sleepless Nights Kids, which also works for moms that can't sleep very well. Now available at your local CVS store. You're going to get some pregnancy humor that may just make you want to pee your pants. Like you don't have to pee all the time anyway, with hilarious pregnancy stories, potato poke, heat your way to heaving, and raisins are us. If you want to learn more about your pregnancy, humor and knowledge is the key to help you survive these 9 months. And just know we're in this together. Today, you will learn the science behind why do babies hiccup in the womb, what causes hiccups in utero, how to stop fetal hiccups because they can be really uncomfortable for mom, and when you should be concerned. All of this coming up right now on Pregnancy Pukeology Podcast, episode 61. Why do babies get hiccups in the womb?
The science of puke, Pukeology.
So why do babies get hiccups in the womb? Well, hiccups are one of the many different movements your baby can make while they're inside of you. It's perfectly normal for your baby to get hiccups. That's totally fine. It signifies that your baby is developing well. So again, relate the fact that they do all of those things outside of the womb, inside of the womb, and that means that they're progressing and growing appropriately. Fetal hiccups refer to quick little repetitive movements your baby makes while in the womb. The movements are caused by your baby's diaphragm's contraction when it inhales amniotic fluid into the lungs. Now remember, when babies are in utero, they're not breathing air and oxygen like we are. Instead, they get everything they need from you, mama, from the amniotic fluid that's actually bathing it. And then you remember that it is attached to you, or attached to them, by their umbilical cord. So you're actually feeding them and giving them nutrients, giving them everything that they need to survive. So again, the hiccup is caused by your baby's diaphragm contraction. So when you inhale, the amniotic fluid goes into the baby's lungs. Now, fetal hiccups are similar to adult hiccups, but adult hiccups are usually followed by rapid air entry rather than amniotic fluid, that same exact sound. So most women feel when they're growing babies get hiccups. Again, it's normal because you're like, woo, there goes my belly. Although some may confuse them with baby kicks. Your baby may begin hiccuping as early as the late first trimester. So again, when you're in your first trimester, you might not notice them, to be honest with you, until you're late in your second trimester. And you'll be able to feel the difference. Trust me. By the time your baby's in the second trimester, you know the difference between a kick, like a rib kick, and a hiccup, because it just feels like a balloon, like a little tickle or like a bubble almost. Kind of like gas, but you know the difference between the two. That's the only thing I can tell you. So some other amazing first trimester side effects include morning sickness, which I talk all about it. That's just my thing, right? All about puke. In episodes, Pregnancy Pukeology Podcast, we talk about morning sickness and morning sickness remedies in episode 1, 2, 9, 13, and 60. So if you want relief and natural relief, may I say, in seconds, so go to what the OBGYNs or the pregnancy doctors choose. It's a band called Pneumonausea, a simple wristband that's utilized in hospitals during labor and delivery that combine essential oils and acupressure to instantly stop your worst nausea and vomiting. So you no mo have to suffer with morning sickness. So you'll probably get morning sickness at the same time your babies will start hiccuping, and we'll all be happy together. Most first-time moms-to-be notice their baby's hiccups when they're about 20 weeks pregnant, while those who have already had prior pregnancies can notice their baby hiccuping as early as 16 weeks. Your hiccups, or your baby's hiccups, are easily felt when your baby gets bigger. However, the frequency of fetal hiccups should decrease when you are a few weeks from giving birth. And we'll tell you more about that because the lungs are actually getting stronger because as they come out into the world, finally that negative pressure happens, right? And so all of a sudden air entry goes in as their lungs expand out. And that's the first time that they're able to close the different holes that they currently have in the heart, which many of the holes that they have in their heart don't actually start closing until the first couple days. And that's the reason why some babies will actually look different colors whenever they are birthed. And that's, again, completely normal. Their bodies have to get used to it. But that negative pressure slams the connection between the first two chambers of the heart, what's called the atria on both sides, slams that part closed so that the baby will then end up giving that oxygen up through to their lungs for the very first time. And isn't that exactly what we want, right? So that is that incredible species of life. I will tell you a really fun fact. Did you know that babies can swim underwater without taking their first breath for up to a couple hours? So yes, if you're having a birth, like a birthing tub birth experience or whatnot, you can actually, if you deliver the baby will continue to swim around. They can actually swim there. But if they do come up to take their first breath, that's when you absolutely have to make sure that you don't put them back down. And if some of you guys are interested in doing baby survival courses for your swimming infants, a trick is you can blow on their face up to the fact of their 6-month birthday. When you blow on their face, it automatically causes them to, they hold their breath. So that's how a lot of these infant swimming classes are done. They blow on the baby's face so that they get accustomed to hold their breath as they go up underneath the water. Just some really fun, interesting facts about your baby that you probably didn't know, or if you're a first-time mommy, that you will find out there very soon. So what causes these fetal hiccups? Your baby will get the hiccups in the womb because of the contraction of the diaphragm as it practices attempting to breathe. They show that your baby is experiencing good developmental milestones when this happens. When your baby gets a hiccup, it indicates that its diaphragm is developing well, making it able to inhale and exhale amniotic fluid. Now, a lot of you are probably asking, what is the diaphragm? Well, the diaphragm is your breathing muscle, okay? It actually lies, think of it as a dome shape that lies over top of your rib cage. And as it pulls, because it contracts, right? It pulls. Think of it as sucking in the actual air. That's that negative pressure, okay? And by telling you that or getting that mental picture in your head, babies can still suck, right? They can still pull. That is, sucking is one of their very first reflexes that they learn. But as they're pulling, they're still sucking in amniotic fluid, even though it's not oxygen, meaning that their diaphragm is trying to work. Now, I'll talk about the actual adults and what's happening in a second, but I want you to understand that fetal hiccups suggest that your baby has an intact and well-functioning nervous system. A nerve activates the contraction of the diaphragm from the baby. When the baby or adult is older, we call it the cervical membrane, okay, the cervical, which is your neck, C3, 4, 5 keeps the diaphragm alive, okay? The nerves that are running in between cervical 3, cervical 4, and cervical 5 are what keeps the diaphragm alive and are a direct connection to the diaphragm. So when people get a car accident and they literally have severed C3 through 5, unfortunately, some of them might be unable to breathe for themselves and be put on a ventilator for the rest of their lives. So again, that C3, 4, 5 keeps the diaphragm alive, and that is the nervous system that we're talking about that actually activates the diaphragm and tells it, hey, contract, suck in air or amniotic fluid in the fetus's case, and then relax and exhale. When your baby gets a hiccup, it shows that it is ready to breathe independently and survive outside of the uterus. When your baby gets hiccups in the womb, it also suggests that it's practicing its vital reflexes. Remember how we were talking about sucking as the first reflex? This is suckling. So the vital reflex is suckling, which are useful when they're born to be able to latch and suck out the actual breast milk. Now, colostrum is extremely important. I can't tell you how it's like liquid gold. Okay, so even if you don't plan on breastfeeding, at least attach the baby so that they can take in the highest nutrients, which is your colostrum. So even if you don't feel like you're doing anything or your boobs are working, because trust me, breastfeeding was the most unnatural, natural thing that I have ever done. And I talk about all of that in the actual breastfeeding tips on episode 38. It really helps first-time moms because you weren't born to be a cow. You weren't born to be able to breastfeed. You have to be able to learn. Your body has to learn how. And I just hope that some of the tips that I can offer when helping a bunch of different pregnant women throughout my career as a physician will be able to help you in return. So when should you be worried? Okay, when are these little blips or tickles in your tummy? At what point should you be concerned? Well, it's usual for your baby to get hiccups, and you don't need to worry about them in most cases. However, when your baby gets hiccups several times a day, especially in the last weeks of pregnancy, it could be a sign that it's not getting enough blood and oxygen. This can occur due to the umbilical cord's compression, meaning squishing of the umbilical cord, or umbilical cord prolapse, which means that the actual umbilical cord, think of it like a hose. When a hose gets kinked, okay, and it starts to come out before the actual baby would come out. Remember that your umbilical cord contains blood vessels that supply your baby with everything that it needs so that it survives your baby with the oxygen, with nutrients. I'll tell you a story about my son who had intrauterine fetal growth retardation. I hate the name of it. IUGR is the nickname. Again, you would think that we'd have a better name by now, but all it meant was that my baby just wasn't growing appropriately. So at 36 weeks, we recognized that he was just measuring very small, and they wanted to take him out. Again, I went and took a look and said, well, let's figure out why. So they did an autopsy type of thing on my placenta, and they took a look at everything, and what they found out was that my son was just Tarzan. He literally was holding the umbilical cord so tight that he wasn't getting the nutrients that he needed, even though there was nothing wrong with my actual uterus. But in those cases, sometimes you may want to consult a perinatologist, which is a inside the baby doctor specialist who can also help you, especially when it comes to the second pregnancy, so that it doesn't happen, because sometimes it could be your blood supply. It could be that you have really bad hypertension. We talk about PIH, which is pregnancy-induced hypertension. If you've ever heard of the term preeclampsia or eclampsia, it's such bad high blood pressure in pregnancy that a mom can actually start seizing. So I know that we actually discuss PIH in great detail in other podcast, so I'm not going to get into that. But if you really are interested about learning more, think of it. Your baby is getting blood supply from the actual umbilical cord. And if you have high blood pressure, well, guess what your vessels are doing, right? It's squeezing and it's getting a lot tighter. Okay, so if your vessels are really, really small and really, really contracted, it takes a lot more pressure to move it through. And that could be also a reason for your baby not having the adequate amount of blood supply. Therefore, if you notice that frequent fetal hiccups are happening multiple times in a day, it's best to inform your doctor as soon as possible. Cord compression or prolapse is associated with changes in your baby's blood pressure, heart rate, accumulation of blood carbon dioxide levels, potential brain damage, and consequently stillbirths. Experience strong and longer fetal hiccups after 28 weeks, call for an evaluation. So definitely get your OBGYN, your midwife, whoever it is that you see, get them on the horn, get them on the phone and talk to them. You may want to check to see and have your doctor check to make sure that there isn't a problem and get that reassurance or that peace of mind, especially because you now know that after 28 weeks, you shouldn't be feeling them consistently because there could be something wrong with the actual baby's diaphragm. Well, now that was all like the science-y part, let's get into something like those funny pregnancy stories to break it up a little bit.
Throwing up on a Tuesday? One puke story.
I was cooking a baked potato and I knew my tummy didn't like them when I was washing them, but I hadn't had one in a really long time. So I figured, why not? Once I heard the oven beep, I poked a potato and the texture made me throw up. The problem is I threw up all over them and my husband thought it was cheese. Oh, that's disgusting. UHMB, thank you so much for that puke story. I have to say, I will look at cheesy potatoes a whole different way. The heating pad comfortably supported my aching back and it felt amazing. I left it on for quite a while and then because I got too hot, it made me really queasy. I quickly moved it and got sick. I had nothing else around, so I had to use it as a catch tray to catch my spaghetti lunch. I still was never able to get the stains out, and did you know that pasta comes back up looking the same as it went down? 23 is number one. Wow, mama, I definitely have to say, pasta. You guys have ruined potatoes and pasta for me today. Thanks. I was rereading Raisins in the Sun, and the second I read the word raisins last week, I threw up red grapes. Ew. What's worse is that the red grapes look like raisins, so the sight and sound of the word kept making me give up my cookies. I still to this day won't eat a red grape or raisin. Bronze and blush. Thank you so much for a hilarious puke story. Now, do you have a puke story that you just can't wait to share with me? Send it to me. Pukeology, Pukeology @nomonausea.com. That's NOMONAUSEA.com. Or tweet me @Pukeology so we can all have a good laugh.
Tips and tricks to stop the up chuckle that you need.
How to stop fetal hiccups in utero. While fetal hiccups are usually not really painful, they may make you feel uncomfortable. Sometimes they can be distracting. They can, again, make it difficult for you to relax, and they might even disrupt your sleep. So here are a few tips to help you stop fetal hiccups in the womb. First, I want you to try to lie on your left side. Support your tummy using pillows to relieve the pressure upon your spine. Perform moderate exercises that are safe to do. And we say this just think of yoga and stretching. Remember that muscles contract and relax, okay? And so if you're not alive and you're not living and you don't have oxygen or energy, your muscles will stay contracted. You actually need energy to relax the muscles, okay? I'm going to say that one more time. So have you ever heard or seen like a show like SVU or something, and the patient or the dead person has rigor mortis? That's literally where all the muscles are contracted. When you're alive and well, your muscles stay contracted, and in order to relax them, you need oxygen and you need energy to help them to open your muscles back up to relax. So think of diaphragm, which it is a muscle, in the same way. If you perform exercises and you're constantly requiring your body to contract everything all together and then relax it, it's not going to do that anymore, because it has to go with the rest of the muscle groups. So that's the reason why. Same thing when it comes to stretching, everyone. The best way to stretch, let's say that you're stretching your leg, you go to try to hold the bottom of your foot, you stretch your leg, you contract against someone. So let's say somebody's pushing on your back, you contract against them with that muscle, and then when you relax, you'll be able to go down farther. I promise, try it. It's really incredible. So after we've talked about the moderate exercise, drink plenty of water. It makes to help you stay hydrated. And I'll tell you a little trick as to why drinking water will help with hiccups when you are adults or when you're even kids, alive and well. Eat a healthy pregnancy diet. So we talk about this all the time. Sometimes irritation can be from other sources, right? So irritation upon the diaphragm, your stomach doesn't fall too far from it. And if you have a lot of acids, right, it's going to get kind of irritated or aggravated, even though the two of them don't touch each other. But you know, just as well as I know, that your esophagus, if you like have some greasy burger or whatever and you burp, right? You can actually almost smell it. It's that same type. Greasy, fatty foods that you'll need bile for usually don't sit very well in your tummy. So have a regular sleep schedule. Mamas with more than one child, I understand that it's so difficult. That's why No Mo Sleepless Nights is here. It combines lavender and your sleep point, which you do have a sleep point on your wrist, just in case if you're ever curious. But go check it out, nomowristbands.com. But get a regular sleep schedule, or at least try to. Go to bed and wake up right around the same time each and every day. That consistent motion and that pattern, even for if you already have kids, is good. A regimen is good for adults and for children. And take a nap if necessary. I know I was exhausted in my first trimester. It's understandable. Go take a nap when you need to. Think of sleep as total amounts, not as when you go lay your head down at the end of the day. And then change positions. Walk around a little bit. While all of the above tips can help to stop fetal hiccups, you also need to learn to embrace them until that time when they start to disappear, because it really means that the health of your baby is good. So now here's the secret. You ready? How to cure hiccups for an adult. Hold your breath. Ready? By the time I'm done with this, I can actually stop your hiccups. So what you're doing by holding your breath is increasing the amount of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is usually that that gas that you're exhaling out. So what happens is it forces the diaphragm that normally forces that carbon dioxide to go out. It forces it to stop contracting when you hold your breath. And the sound that you're hearing is actually the epiglottis, which the epiglottis is on the very back. It actually helps to stop food from going down your windpipe. So it's a protective mechanism. And that's what hiccups are, the voluntary contractions of the epiglottis. Okay, you'll hear that as that little flap is literally going over top of it, and it's busting out little bits of air. So during that 30-second little spiel, you should have no mo hiccups. All you have to do is hold your breath for about 30 seconds. And if you are a person that's heard the old wives' tale, you got to take a drink of water. Your mother was right. And the reason why is because since your epiglottis is protecting your diaphragm, even when you eat or drink something, when you drink water, it's protecting it so that water doesn't go down the wrong pipe, and that causes the involuntary contraction to stop. Interesting, right? Well, I hope that you have had an amazing time learning about all the stuff that your baby is doing in that wonderful little hot tub. You've learned the science behind why babies get hiccups, what causes hiccups, how to stop fetal hiccups, especially with the uncomfortable ones, when they should be about null and void or start getting a lot less in week 28, and also when you should potentially be concerned and how to stop adult hiccups. So if you've loved all of that in which I've said, and if you love Pregnancy Pukeology Podcast, let me know, please, with 5-star ratings or hearts for likes. And don't forget to download this episode, but more importantly, share it with all your preggo friends. Thanks again for listening to Pregnancy Pukeology Podcast, episode 61, Why Do Babies Get Hiccups in the Womb? See you next time.
Pukeology Podcast, edutainment at its finest.